He's an actor, an investor, a director, a producer, a philanthropist. Boris has backed diverse founders globally, built businesses across entertainment, technology, sports. I could go on, but I will let him.
Don't.
No, I must.
No, it's not.
I will let him do the talking. I can't think of a better, more fitting way to open the VC Summit. Welcome, Boris Kodjoe.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. That's it? Really? That's it?
Excellent. Thank you
Everybody's
so
still
much.
asleep.
No, they're not asleep. They're
Okay.
being shy. Thank you very much for joining us, Boris.
Thanks for having me.
In the next 20 minutes, I want to uncover the man that is Boris. We're going to take everyone through the journey of Boris the person, Boris the actor, Boris the investor and philanthropist.
All right, let's go.
On that note, let's kick off. So, Boris, you've lived across many cultures. As a German Ghanaian, you built a global career, maintained deep connection to Africa. But I'm interested to know, and I think the audience will want to know, what shaped your sense of identity early on? And when did you see that identity was not just personal, but something that you carry with responsibility and something to use to influence?
Well, growing up between Germany and Ghana, and then later on being educated in the United States, culture was always a contrast for me, right? You have the German discipline and structure, you have the Ghanaian heritage and culture, and then America to me was always a place of great miracles and opportunity, and I learned about access. But at first, identity is really about understanding yourself. At least it was for me. I was trying to figure out who I was. And then later on, identity became a platform. And with that, I realized that there was also responsibility attached. Because when people start recognizing you, they start listening to you, they start trusting you, that responsibility becomes real. And then after a while, you realize that, okay, you're not just representing yourself, but you're representing possibility. And I was very much aware of that. But all in all, I teach this to my kids, I think identity is about the journey. It's about changing. It's about discovering new things about yourself. It's about finding a place in the world. And hopefully, at some point, it's about stepping into your purpose.
Wonderful. It's very important what you said about the responsibility you carry, and also allowing others find their identity. You've done a lot of great work on the continent, and we'll talk about Ghana shortly, but I want to finish a little bit about your personal journey first. So I think what's obvious to everyone is you started in entertainment, but what might not be so obvious to people is your work right now sits at the intersection of culture, business, impact. So when did your thinking start changing about moving from entertainment into building a career that focuses on narratives at a scale?
Wow. Well, entertainment gave me visibility, but again, purpose gave me direction. So at some point in my career, I realized, or I asked myself the question, I said, am I just participating in storytelling? Or do I actually have a say-so? Do I help shape what stories are being told? Because as an actor, I'm very aware of the power of representation, right? But as someone who is so close to Africa, I'm also very much aware of the cost of misrepresentation. So the shift came because I realized that narrative is not abstract. Narrative affects how people, in my instance, how people thought about Ghana, if they felt they wanted to travel there, visit, if they felt welcome there, if they wanted to start businesses there, become landowners there. And the flip side, it also affected how young Africans or young African Americans or people of African descent felt about themselves. Now, am I a creator, am I a builder, or am I a survivor? So that was the moment when I realized that narrative, it's more than just content. Storytelling is more than just content. Storytelling is economic architecture. So it affects everything. It affects how we feel about ourselves. It affects how we feel about others, how we feel about situations, how we feel about countries. And that was very apparent when we started working on Full Circle.
Excellent. And I'll talk a little bit more about storytelling, because we spoke about it when we had the pre-chats, and how all of the people in this room, the investors, as you know, as an investor, the perception of Africa is so important in helping mobilize capital. And I always say this, when you Google many African countries, most of the news that comes up is always negative. So it reinforces what
or zebras. Zebras and huts.
Monkeys too.
Monkeys.
But I think this really, it solidifies the point you're making about the importance of narrative and story. I've never heard storytelling being described as economic architecture. I'm going to take note of that one. But I think it really grounds that point. But I think I want to move to understand, because you talk a lot about how we must control our own narrative. And it's very important to you how we should control it. So why does ownership of story matter so much when it comes to how Africa is perceived globally?
It's very simple. Those who own the story, or those who control the story, control the valuation, right? Because for decades, Africa has been filtered through crisis, poverty, conflict, corruption. And of course, that reality exists in parts of the continent, just like anywhere else in the world, but it's not the totality of Africa. And it's dangerous when a partial story becomes the dominant story. And so when Africa does not own its story, someone else defines its risk. And when somebody else defines your risk, they can discount your value. And in Africa's case, it's so important that Africa owns its story, because then Africa, as well as the diaspora, we can all collectively go from being the subject of 8 campaigns and documentaries, we can finally become the author of our stories, and thereby become the author of our identity, especially in a global context.
So let's talk more a little bit about the diaspora, because we've got a panel later as well talking about the power of the diaspora, not just as capital providers, but also connectors. Mm-hmm. And you've spoken a lot about how you do a lot of work within your community in the US and globally, changing the narrative. So, and you can link it to Ghana, because I know we need to touch on that. So how important do you think is the diaspora in changing that global narrative for Africa?
It's huge. It's a partnership. I think people in the diaspora have the responsibility to become cultural and economic ambassadors for Africa, right? Because as diasporans, we have to challenge old stereotypical narratives that are rooted in bias, which have been promoted by Western media for a specific purpose. And we have to amplify voices that help us see Africa in the context of possibility, of opportunity, of complexity, and of innovation and progress. So it's the diaspora's job to make sure that reality matches perception, and make sure that Africa moves towards that identity, the identity of being the center of growth and innovation and opportunity. And in terms of a capital context, I always say that capital follows confidence. Confidence follows perception, and then perception follows story, right? And it's important to understand that for instance, vehicles move people, financial instruments move money, story moves belief, and belief moves people and money. Again, it is very powerful to own the narrative, because perception is what drives capital.
100% aligned on the perception. And to be fair, some of the things that, in the industry that some of the investors wrestle with is one of the ways of changing said perception is actually inviting them to the continent. So I think the lack of experience of being on the continent, it's almost like the boogeyman. You don't know unless you come there. And I think that's part of the work that you did with Ghana.
How's that the boogeyman?
No, it's like, if you haven't been, like we said, the zebras, the monkeys, and all the things that people imagine. But when you actually come to the continent, I think it completely changes, not 100%. All the time, but it changes the narrative, and it kind of dispels some of those irrational, we may think they're irrational, but they might be rational to others, some of those fears. Yeah. So linking it back to the work that you've done in Ghana, and you guys did something transformative with the Year of the Return. Talk us through how that happened, and linking it back to your whole changing the narrative and storytelling. Why was that so important?
Hugely important, which, by the way, it ended up being a case study that I learned so much from, and that I'm basing all of my future work on. When we produced the Full Circle Festival to celebrate the Year of Return in 2019, Ghana turned from a destination into a place of belonging. And that emotional context, that emotional invitation became an economic engine. So we ended up taking Ghana from 40,000 tourist visa to 1.2 million in one year. Which, thank you. and content was at the center of that movement, because we curated a week-long event, everything from visiting historic sites to investment summits to parties on the beach, cultural engagement, shopping outings, and everything. And we brought in 250 leaders from business, sports, and entertainment from the diaspora. Within 2 days, we had amassed over 2 billion impressions, and the content went viral globally. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera showed up the second day wondering what was going on in Ghana. So that happened organically because those images were shared in a spirit of authenticity, in a spirit of reconnection with the ancestry, in a spirit of sharing our collective heritage and culture. And so it was not performative. It was instant, and it was magical. And we realized that the African narrative that had been misused, misrepresented for so long needed to be counteracted. And all the content that we created organically and authentically served that purpose. And it prompted 20 other countries to call us and wanting to rebrand just like Ghana did. And the economic impact was huge. $10 billion in the last 7 years through tourism. So we realized that tourism is more than hospitality. Tourism really is customer acquisition.
Very interesting you said that, because I was going to ask, my next question was going to be, I love the fact that it was almost a homecoming. I remember that year very clearly. I remember all the buzz, everyone going to Ghana. I completely fear of missing out. So I know, I completely resonate with you when you say it was very organic, but how do you productize it? You say now 20 other African countries are interested. How do you recreate that magic? Is it possible?
Look at America. Look what America has done in the last 150 years. That's a marketing campaign. The greatest country in the world is really great in a few things. Marketing, that's the truth. Marketing is being one of them, right? Healthcare, they're 57th. Education, they're 38th. I mean, honestly, they are really the inventor of marketing and branding. When I was a little boy in Germany and in Ghana, I wanted to go to America. Why? There's no logic reason why I wanted to go to America. It's because of the marketing. McDonald's, Michael Jordan, Nike, those things had an impact. The flag, those things had a real impact on my young mind. So Africa has been subjected to the same kind of branding, which has not served us. So we have to take control of that part of the equation. We have to take control of branding. We have to take control of our narrative, and so we can drive perception and we can drive capital.
Thank you for that. I want to delve a little bit deeper to Boris, the investor, still linked with the content, with the storytelling narrative. From your perspective, so there are lots of investors in the room. Where do you see the investable opportunities through all of the work that you've done, aligned with your storytelling and content narrative? Where do you think the gaps are or the opportunities are right now?
I think the opportunity lies between, the opportunity lies in the gap between supply and demand when we're talking about content. Because again, our African content has been regarded as a project rather than an industry. And that has to be a mindset shift that goes on, because only if we consider content as an industry are we able to truly maximize its potential. And I'm talking about owning the entire content value chain, from development to production to distribution to monetization, marketing, owning our IP, which is a huge deal for Africans, because we continue to export talent. We should empower our talent to stay and export our goods and services, which in our case would be movies and TV show and content. That's very important. Also, I keep stressing the point of the engagement with the diaspora. We cannot do this in silos. We have to do this together. You know, the diaspora accounts for almost $750 billion in remittances, which is a huge amount of money that should be allocated in a more structured investment way, rather than just what is it? This irregular flow of money coming in. We have to be more intentional about that. So the combination between creating partnerships with the diaspora that are intentional, owning our IP, creating a value chain that we control, it creates a great sense of ownership amongst those of us who understand how important content is, because there's still old traditional views that we're talking about a hobby or leisure, and I want people to understand, I want investors to understand that the data is real. Content is a huge economic driver because it touches over 26 other sectors. Storytelling is the key to us understanding ourselves, understanding our future. And I just got data back on Friday from my partners at Parrot, and some of the most mind-boggling pieces of analytics were that African content is being consumed across 4 continents, and 90% of the demand comes from multiple markets. Because a lot of people think that most of the African continent is being consumed either on the continent or in America. America accounts for only 8%. So it's a truly global demand that's out there that hasn't been met by supply. So the opportunity is in that gap.
Interesting. I didn't know that stat. And I guess from what I'm hearing from you, there is wide opportunity across the entire value chain, but what is critical is owning our IP for us to get to the next stage. Okay, excellent. Boris, do you mind if we pause here to see if there are any questions before I carry on with mine?
Please, yes.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? We have some roaming mics. If not, we will carry on.
Don't be shy. Yes.
Please. Can we get a mic to Emmanuel at the back, please?
Diaspora engaging in Africa.
There
So wondered whether there's any work that you're doing to bring in American capital, whether it's from CEOs of organizations or just different people in the community like high net worth Black or African Americans.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, it's about the story that we're telling, and the story has to be. It's twofold. One, we're breaking down stereotypes because there was hesitancy amongst investors in the diaspora, but they were all based on really outdated and just wrong data. The facts are that average return on foreign investment in Africa is 11.4%, and globally it's 7%. Those are the stories that we need to tell, and those are the stories that move the needle when it comes to investors in the diaspora. And yes, because of our storytelling and because of some of the projects that we have invested in partnership with other foreign investors, that number keeps going up. And I hope that in the future, we can celebrate many more milestones in that respect.
Good morning. My name is Winnie. I work for MIDA. At MIDA, we invest in emerging managers, and we support first-time female fund managers to anchor them and also get to final close. So my question is, have you invested in any emerging managers, and what has been your experience? And what does that look like in the future? Are you looking to do more opportunities in the continent where you become an LP? So that's my question.
Yeah, part of investing in content is investing in ecosystems, because you can't grow a sustainable industry without having a base of an ecosystem. And the ecosystem means the creator economy. It means she asks a question and she doesn't listen. Hello? She's just like, anyway. This is for you, Winnie. Jesus. Come on, girl. I'm talking to you. Yes, we got to invest in ecosystems, right? And obviously, there's a lot of female-led production companies. There's agencies on the ground. Part of it is deploying capital in many different facets of the ecosystem. The creator economy in Africa is huge, 40, 50 million creators. Now, what happens is when you feed content into the creator economy, creators are the audience, and the audience are the creators. So it's a circle that keeps going, and it keeps growing IP that you can then turn into many different verticals. So Africa is a really, really hot, viable ecosystem to invest in because there's so many creators.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Anandi?
Sure. Hi, I'm Anandi Rajakumar, and I'm with the IFC. And I really was fascinated what you said about branding and the US brands, but that has really been led by private companies. Mm-hmm. So as you look at the Africa rebranding strategy and the diversity across Africa of the nations and all the other things and the different identities, who do you see as the actors, whether it's private, public, that can really drive the rebranding, and how do we all sort of support that?
That's a great question. I think it has to be a combination of both. As we all know, here in Africa, governments are more reactive than proactive. So sometimes it helps partnering with the private sector to drive progress and also to shame governments into doing the right thing. I found that to be really effective. So what I usually do is meet with the government, I meet with the private sector, and I bring the press. So I have instant accountability, right? So private sector is fast, they're proactive, and the next step is then to bring in the government and take them into the fold. Sometimes, or most of the time, as an endorser, right? We might not take money from the government because then you also fall into the trap of the mandates. But we get their endorsement and their willingness to supply us with other resources. But usually it's a mixed partnership.
I'm so sorry. I know there are about 2 more questions, but the timer is saying that...
Screw the timer.
No,
Who cares about the timer?
No.
Who cares about the timer?
Oh, God. Okay, let's just take 2 more. I'm so
Yes.
sorry, production team. I'm really sorry, panel 1. Please go ahead.
There's a gentleman right here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes.
No, not you. Not you.
Boris, thank you so much. After 30 years of investing in Africa as an American, you've hit the nail on the head. Now, perhaps you could help me. Tell us how we can feed our creative seed stage ventures into your American pipeline that you envision for our ecosystem. Thank you.
Sorry, when you say our ecosystem, what are you talking about American ecosystem, or are you talking?
Oh, sorry. I've just written a book about the ecosystem to change American mindsets. This African ecosystem is so strong and so full of ingenuity that I want Americans to stop fearing and start contributing their courageous capital. Mm-hmm. Your pipeline.
Again, I think it's very important that Africa stops being a subject in other people's stories and start being an author, and thereby defining its own identity on a global stage. So again, it's a partnership, right? I don't see Africa as a silo when it comes to exporting goods and services. You cannot create a business and start a business or generate a sustainable business if you're just talking about local value chains without any export opportunities, right? You have to grow. What's great about African content is it is universally respected and loved. Afrobeats has shown us the way and proved to everybody in the world how viable that is. So the visual medium is just following in the footsteps of Afrobeats, so to speak. So again, we have to produce in Africa and then start exporting to the rest of the world. Content is viable when it's universally relevant. Stories, as long as they're authentic, they will connect with the rest of the world. And Africa has proven that that's absolutely the case. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the insightful conversation. I understand you have a background in sports,
Yeah.
with Division I tennis. Like you, I also played D1 tennis in the US.
Where'd you
Came back to
play?
Drexel, same conference.
Drexel.
And nobody's perfect. And I was wondering, how do you draw parallels between the sports world? You know, obviously you're trying to identify the next generation of local champions. We're talking about VC, we're talking about technology. We're all trying to identify the next gems in technology. So wondering, what are the tools that you apply to construct a playbook that's scalable for us to learn from?
In order to identify
The next technology talent locally.
I like investing in people. That's sort of my sweet spot. I identify people that I connect with. I identify with their drive. I identify with their passion, their purpose. And I always ask them what their why is. And if I can connect with the why, I'm very likely to invest and support that. Because to me, when you connect your venture with who you are as a person, and when you address a very specific need that's not about you, but about many other people, you're bound to be successful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Boris. I have one question for you to close it out, because you just mentioned it. if you could give us in one sentence, what is your why?
My why. My why is 100% purpose, purpose-driven. My why is I want to use my platform to benefit as many people as I can. I think too many of us use our platforms to monetize for ourselves, and not many of us use our platforms to amplify voices that need to be heard or to support people that need support. And there's no greater joy for me than to open my platform up for people who deserve it, who have things to say that move humanity back in a better direction.
Excellent. A very commendable why. Thank you so much, Boris. You have been wonderful. Give
Thank
it up
you.
for the formidable Boris Kodjoe, everyone.
Thank you.